sadly, my daughter's never going to meet my mum. She's never going to meet her grandma, but she's almost going to know her because of the videos I have. I never thought like doing a podcast with my daughter would help that business.
If you're not doing content, what are you doing? It's free. Concept, consistency.
Connection. Short form content is just easier to consume.
You can't just go, well, let's just use all the collateral that we've generated in short form and then expect to that audience to get that deep relationship.
Yeah.
And therefore your retention numbers aren't going to be there.
All right, welcome to the Podcast Foundry Podcast, Kev. It's nice to have you here today.
Well, nice to have you. You turned up at my house today.
All right, so I'm concerned we didn't really do like an intro for the last one, so we should probably do an introduction for this one. So,
well, let's flip the script. Pri, why don't you talk to me about your kind of journey into this world, like video production, etc.
Okay, so I studied psychology, but I've always been really interested in people's stories. After university, started a bunch of businesses, failed at a ton, but I always came back to like sharing stories, like sharing people's stories. So I started this project called the Open Journal Project, which was literally that. It was speaking to people. Let me talk to you about why I named it the Open Journal. It was called the Open Journal because I wanted people to share with me stuff they would only talk about in their personal journal. And it was about being frank, open and honest, and getting to like the deepest, darkest places of people's souls, I guess. So that was the idea behind it. So I'd sit with someone for like hours and talk to them. Essentially, it was kind of like a podcast where I'd just be guiding conversation. And that's where I really first got into it. And I started, like, my production level was really poor. This was like years ago. Production level was poor, but the content was really good. And I remember the first couple of ones I posted, even whilst the production was poor, like the viewership was really high. And I realized like, it's because it comes back to that people buy from people and people are really interested in other people's lives. And we can almost learn from each other. I've always thought this concept of like, we see a reflection of ourselves in each other. And that was really important. So it's like me and you have had different upbringings. We've led our life maybe slightly differently. Like you chose audio engineering and all that stuff when you were going for uni and whatnot. I chose psychology, but we've connected because we see a reflection of ourselves in each other almost. And that idea really fascinated me. So, I was freelancing, I was contracting at a couple of places, and I was like, I just don't really make a good employee.
Funny that.
I got into. I've always been interested in video space since I was a young kid.
What did you learn though? So you did the Open Journal. We both worked in the wedding space, wedding video space. And then obviously commercial content, a lot more focused around documentary style than kind of advert, etc. Although we've done those things, but it's always been more lent into a documentary style. That's just our style, I think, and probably why we get on really well is that we both see so much value in that. Yeah. So I guess podcasting is just an evolution of that somewhat, allowing us to be a bit more frank and open as opposed to scripted and planned. So obviously you've done all this work and like you kind of gained this bank of experience and knowledge. Are there like 3 key pillars or like ideas that you've taken from all of these evolutions of your experience, like as you've been growing, that you're like, make it a good thing, like make it a good piece of content, like, or a good podcast?
I think the first one is concept, like what really makes your podcast or story unique. And I mentioned like my podcast with my daughter. It was never meant to be anything for one. It was just like father and daughter having a chat.
No, but you've got a better reason for why you started that, which is maybe much more of a personal story, which maybe you want to share part of. I appreciate that you might not want to share all of it. Yeah,
no, for sure. I think let's take it back to that because that is actually a big driver for why we're almost sitting here today. So my mum sadly passed away in 2020. It was very early, well, just during the first lockdown, when no one had a clue what COVID was and whatnot. And obviously it was a very traumatic period of time for a lot of people. But after Mum passed, you know, I was looking at like finding pictures and videos and stuff that I may have had, and I was lucky enough to have actually interviewed my mum for her 50th birthday when we took her to Rome, and I've got like maybe 2-3 hours worth of footage, and I was asking her questions like, you know, are there any messages that you'd like to give to your future grandchildren and stuff. Now, sadly, my daughter's never going to meet my mum. She's never going to meet her grandma, but she's almost going to know her because of the videos I have. And obviously the stories that we're going to share and with her about like what my mum was like and whatnot. But having that video, like there's a message that she's giving like to her future grandkids, and my daughter Saraya watches that literally all the time. And it's like she knows my mum. And that's when I was like, that's why video is so powerful. Like you can almost know someone because you've seen them on screen, you listen to them so regularly. But that took me to then, I wanted to do this personal podcast with me and my daughter. It was just me and her having a conversation, because if anything was to ever happen to me, like my daughter's got all this footage of her and her dad having a chat and just having a good time. And it was very like, obviously it's very informal. It's a chat with a 2-year-old. So you could appreciate.
Don't downplay it, Pri. I am unbelievable. I've got a 3-year-old, and I feel guilt that I've not done anything equivalent, because it is phenomenal. Careful,
yeah.
If you haven't seen it, you have to watch this.
Yeah.
It's absolutely gorgeous on Pri's personal Instagram, I believe, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on my personal Instagram.
But look, actually looking, and I appreciate that's come from a really warm place, but when you start looking at that and you look at the concept in its purest form of a father and a daughter, and then you try and look at it maybe scientifically as opposed to emotionally, there's a reason why that content works, right? It is an absolutely gorgeous, your daughter's gorgeous, but an absolutely gorgeous little 2-year-old. Gorgeous father.
Thank you. I was waiting for it.
Having like the most innocent conversations, isn't it? And even if it's just playing over a book, that will work. Yeah. Because it's that concept that they say, like, if you put a puppy on Instagram, it will fly.
Of course, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, and children do the same. I mean, the biggest YouTube video of all time is still Charlie Bit My Finger, and what is it, 48 seconds of gold. No, but it is that that level of innocence. So it's tried and tested. So conceptually, I don't think you went into it with the basis of will it work.
No, never. No.
It was always very personable or personal, but you can understand why it's done extremely well as content. Yeah,
and actually, like you said, it wasn't ever supposed to be anything. It was just like me and having a chat. But actually, like I've seen the positive impacts of it for my personal business, because like my wife said to me, look, if you're going to do it, because we were like, do we share her on Instagram and social media and whatnot? We were toying with that for such a long time. And then when we started this podcast, my wife was like, you've potentially got something here, because like the content's really good. And so when I posted the first one, it just absolutely blew up. Well, blew up considering like my following base anyway.
Well, your numbers are like in multiples of your normal content, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they've done really well.
It relative blown up.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing 5x what your normal scheduled posting would be, then no brainer, right?
Yeah, it's done well. Yeah. But the great thing about that is like, obviously, like I've got like a long version podcast of it, but I've cut it up into smaller pieces, smaller chunks, and just regularly I've been posting that. And it's like being consistent with that posting has led to like a nice following. Like I'm getting regular new followers that are coming across the content, and I think just being consistent with that has been great for my personal brand, which it was never, like I said, it was never the intention, but it's just so happened that I never thought like doing a podcast with my daughter would help my business.
You could, and I've been watching this stuff, kind of like waiting for the next one to come out. Like I am in, I'm invested. But obviously, I know your daughter personally, and I love her dearly. But I'm assuming that you're actually building deeper connections with existing people, but potentially growing the audience that are watching. And as I said, it is completely irrelevant to your business, barring the fact that it's produced and it's video and it's things that you know innately. So of course you come with quality, etc. as a baseline, But you must be seeing like a massive growth in your connections.
Definitely. Like it's had, like I said, because it wasn't intentional, like I never looked at it from that perspective, but now being more intentional with like, okay, making sure lighting is a little bit more better, making sure the audio is like, we've had an audio session where you've showed me how to really break down the audio and make sure like the audio's clear, crisp. So it's
He's admitting to being coached right now.
Yeah, I mean,
I will take that. I will take
you are the godfather of audio, man. I'm not.
Please don't put me up there, man. There are definitely better people than me. No, that's fine.
No,
that's fine. I'll take it.
But no, like all this stuff really matters. And it's like, actually, if people are watching this content, they'd be like, you know, looking at this and like, okay, he is good at audio. He is good at video.
It's not, I wouldn't even put it down as simple as that though, Pri. Like, the thing is, I've always lived by a mantra, which is good quality content doesn't, good quality production doesn't mean good quality content, right? Like,
agreed.
The concept or the actual content of it is more important than how well it's shot. But that comes with the caveat, which is, especially when you talk about long form or you're trying to engage with people, if they're struggling to hear you or, you know, like those things actually make it harder for them to engage with you. So I guess for me, I've always believed that there's got to be some level of baseline. And we talked about it, like that whole Charlie bit my finger thing. That's shot in like, what was it, 1990 something, or maybe early 2000s. And it isn't good quality, but it absolutely flew. And actually, if you look at other things, like, think about something like Baby Shark, right? We both got little kids, so we see this stuff all the time, but it's not ridiculously produced, is it?
No,
it's not like millions of pounds have been put into production. That thing is clearing billions of views, though. So it's just proof that actually quality does not align with success, like, but it helps. It's like, if you don't have a baseline, you're not going to see the same level of growth. So I think you come at it with that level already.
Which just definitely helps.
So there's three things really, isn't it? There's like concept, consistency, what was the third one?
And connections.
That's it, right? Absolutely. So like, and you actually invest a lot of time into building those connections. Like, I see you replying and commenting back, etc. And actually that community management part is, as much as you're doing it because it's your daughter and you and it's personal, and you're building or maintaining or re-engaging with people you used to know or spent time with, that's allowing growth in that content as well. Like, it's allowing you to grow your audience, but engagement rates leads to better algorithm response, etc. Right? So,
but even like behind the scenes, like, you know, I get messages all the time, like, oh, when's the next podcast coming out for your daughter? And these aren't just people that I know, these are new followers. And I was like, that's when
was the first time you got like a full-on random person? Have you had that yet?
Yes. I've had, I can't remember the exact numbers now, but I remember within the first 2 weeks of it, because I was posting quite regularly, I had like 70 new followers. And okay, that doesn't sound like a lot, but those 70 new followers are now like messaging me, be like, oh, I love this content. I can't wait for the next episode and stuff. And again, it draws in that fact that you have to be consistent with this stuff. I've had actually people messaging me, some friends or people that, you know, I've not really connected with over the last couple of years, but with, you know, you follow each other on Instagram, they've messaged and been like, oh yeah, if you ever do like a what do you call it? Not a private viewing. What do you call those when you do like a preview? You know, one of those ones. Like, if you ever do those, like, add me to the list so I can have like, you know, and it's been
first access.
Exactly, And so it's like it's building those like connections all over again. And like I looked at the stats, and I think it was in the last 30 days I've had nearly, I think, close to 98,000 views or something like that across all the videos.
Wow.
Which is insane. Like, it's crazy.
It's funny though, because those three pillars that we've talked about, we could apply them to any, and even if we can debate what success is, but successful podcasts, right? Whether you want to go all the way up to like the Joe Rogan Experience, or down, like I say down, but they're not that much lower, like Colin and Samir, the Diary of a CEO. These are like multi-million viewership podcasts. And it's funny because actually those things apply. The same logic applies. They've got their concept that they stick with. Joe Rogan's obviously even more long form and basically sitting and chilling with someone so he can really deep them, right? Like deep dive into who they are. And if, let's be honest, if Donald Trump's willing to do that, then that just shows the level of exposure this guy has. And then they're always, like, you cannot argue that they're consistent, right? Like, they are relentless with their cadence. It's just consistent. But let's be honest, the short form collateral out of all of these massive pieces is insane. Like, you can get hundreds of pieces of content from a single couple of hour long clip, like podcast. Like, and the Joe Rogan ones, I feel like I've seen so many bits of an Elon Musk one that I'm like, has he done multiple shows? Like, has he sat down? How many times has he sat down? Because it's insane how much content comes out of it. And obviously they're building their audience based on it. So that's really cool. Obviously, I mean, barring, you know, yours and your daughter's one, there's this concept of focusing down on what your content's about. Like, finding the bit that you want to hang your hat on, like the niche, as it were. And how important do you think it is to find the niche? Like, I always believe, this is my personal perception, and even when I talk about, like, from a digital marketing and coaching businesses, is you've got to kind of niche down and then niche down some more and then niche down some more until you are truly focused, because the audience you are building in that space are the most important. So I believe that actually there's no limit to how much you niche down, because the more you become a specialist, the more respected you become, and therefore the more your content reaches the right audience. What do you think?
I do agree to a certain extent. Maybe I do agree with you, maybe just slightly differently. I think when for me, when I was starting this podcast, as an example again, I didn't really have a niche. It was, let's just go out there and try this. And now I am going through that process now of, like, kind of niching down, like, who is my audience almost. At the moment, it's quite, like, high level. I don't have, like, a specific niche. I will go down the road of, like, trying to figure that out eventually. But I think right now I think once you're just consistent in the story that you're telling almost, and consistent in your scheduling and posting, I do think then slowly when you keep looking at that, you will find your niche. And then once you've got that niche, you'll have that, like, that audience of people that will just almost your raving fans. Do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree, actually. And maybe when I say that, it's not that should be a barrier to entry. Like, I'm saying that in time, your niche will, or your kind of core focus will naturally come out. And you should guide it somewhat.
Yeah. No.
Like, I don't think you should just be like, I am everything all the time, because that's impossible. You can't win on all fronts, right?
For sure.
But it shouldn't be a reason that you don't do it. It's like, I don't know what I want to talk about. Well, that doesn't matter. Yeah. Like, that shouldn't have an effect either. Yeah. Right? You should still do, because, you know, we're all always evolving and iterating and changing. So slowly that niche might change, that focus might change. It doesn't have to be so hard and fast, but I do believe that the more you niche down, the more you're trusted and respected in a specific, like, problem solving.
Good point. Yeah.
The more that you add value, your thought leadership comes through then. Yeah. Right.
I guess if you're starting like if you're in the fintech space as an example, and you're, I don't know, talking about hot air balloons, it's not gonna make sense. Yeah, it's not gonna make sense. So you kind of do have to niche down. No, that does make sense.
And I guess the only other thing that I'd want to understand is, and this is obviously leaning into the podcast you're doing, but how important, like, you're really taking quite short form content out of them. Like, I'm sure you've got these long forms, but you've not really shared them. Yeah. Like, how important, I guess you've done that with intent. Yeah. Like, and why is that?
Short form content is just easier to consume. I don't expect to have, like, if you look at the views that I have on let's say the last 3 videos I've done, they've been like 7,000, 8,000 or 5,000, I can't remember, something around those values. I don't expect to put the long form up onto YouTube as an example and get that
7,
same,
8,
because it's longer to watch and people are always just scrolling on their phones. So the intent is put these short form content, because I can do a long video with my daughter. I say long, they're like maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah, max, yeah.
And
it's a 2-year-old.
It's a 2-year-old, exactly. Yeah. 10 minutes of that may be her screaming and taking off the mic. But so, but I can do that podcast and I've cut that up into, let's say, 10, 15 clips and I post them regularly. The idea is eventually people are going to watch it, like, I really want to see the long version. And I'm hoping, and actually people are asking about it, like, where can I watch long version? I just haven't put them up on YouTube yet.
Do you think that you build, I believe short form is your way to engage new audience, right? Like
yes.
And the long form is the solution for those that are already there, right? Like they're the ones that are going to sit and watch 20 minutes of it.
It's also a good way to... Sorry, go on.
The question really was, or maybe my trying to understand more is, like, do you feel that the value of your audience is different? I guess the value they receive, like, are they going to be as invested because they've only seen short form? Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm asking?
Are they going to be as invested because they've only...
Yeah, as in, like, there was a consideration... Look, the TikTok generation, the TikTok boom, and short form content on all platforms. Like Meta do it, YouTube do it. TikTok kind of pushed it originally.
Yeah.
This like less than 60 second, but people have made massive subscriber counts because of that. So I guess I'm in the mindset, which is historically I always thought that short form would be, you never really truly engage with the person behind it. And therefore they weren't the same level of value as someone that had seen you long form.
I don't know. I think I understand what you're saying. I think the difference is now, like, again, once you're posting consistently, like you almost have the ability to go onto someone's profile and you watch one and like, oh, I like that content. Scroll to the next one. And all of a sudden, like, it's almost like you've watched the full length version without watching the full length version. And I feel like that's why you can build that trust and rapport with someone that you're not necessarily spoken to. Was that kind of what you were asking? Was that?
No, I do. As in, I'm kind of like the jury's still out on it. Like whether evidently there's proof of this in terms of the TikTok boomers that have got millions of subscribers, right? So the people are actually going, what's next from this person?
Yeah. Okay.
So it's kind of proven, but I'm interested to see how deep that relationship gets. Like at what point? So there's been a lot of TikTokers that have tried to transition to long form and not been very successful as well, right?
Yeah.
Like people are not getting to know them on a deeper. So short form content is not the only answer.
No.
I guess what I'm learning from it.
Okay, yeah, go on.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
As in, you can't just go, well, let's just use all the collateral that we've generated in short form and then expect to that audience to get that deep relationship.
Yeah.
And therefore your retention numbers aren't going to be there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's almost like that episodic content.
Yeah.
That's why it works so well. Like if you... I know what I'm trying to say.
Then you say it. Go away. That's what my daughter says.
Go away. Yeah.
No, you put her on the toilet and then she's like, go away. Until she's done.
Yeah, but she's saying that because she wants fight.
Yeah. It is being recorded right now, I'm just saying.
Oh,
From a business perspective, I believe that a lot of people will think, okay, we'll just create a load of short form.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Right? And then we'll get loads of numbers. But do those numbers actually have value?
Yeah, that's important. Actually, I get what you're saying. Yeah, because you can have a bunch of short form content, but it doesn't give you context almost. So like, I think what's good for short form is like you're able to test what works. So for example, if you're trying to find your niche as well, like what kind of content's working really well. So if you're talking about like, I don't know, putting lemon juice in water, that kind of content. Is that working? Do you know what I mean? Is that working really well? Or is it you giving business insights? Is that working really well? Or, you know, taking a deeper dive into your, I don't know, your morning routine. I think that does allow you to, firstly, different types of content, but it allows your people to, your viewers, to watch your content and be like, oh, I like that, but I want to know a little bit more about this person. And then they go to the long form, and then they watch this long, like 20-minute episode of you on a podcast talking about...
Yeah, but you might have like people might realise that actually it's not what they want, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I guess it's the doorway, right? Like, we're using short form to get people to come and see the longer form, and therefore kind of build all I'm saying is the value of that audience, the value of that community is built in the long form. But they're introduced in the short. And to say, oh yeah, we've got hundreds of thousands of people watching short form collateral, but only 1% of that are engaged, is the same as when we look at click-through rates, right? It's all well and good if they see it and they click on it, but if they land on the page and what they're not getting out what they wanted to, then either the content's wrong or they're the wrong person.
Yeah. So
that's
true.
fine. Like, that's absolutely fine. But that's, I guess, why it's important to understand why those two formats are really, really involved with each other, but actually affect very differently. You
just reminded me of why that's actually so important, because my uncle, my cousins, and even my grandma, they watch this podcast. It's not really a podcast; it's more like a vloggy style of a podcast, I guess. And it's like a food blogger. And it's an Indian food blogger. They go around like the UK and India and wherever they are. And
sounds interesting.
Yeah, but it's really good. But they were introduced to that through short form originally. Now, religiously, they will watch the long version. And that's one thing. But now, when I went out to Dubai with the family, just on a family holiday, my uncle recommended me all these places to eat because of that guy.
Yeah.
And that's actually really
It's
powerful.
funny, there's also a guy in London. He's based in the UK. Oh, Todd Eats.
Okay, yeah.
And I've been to 3 restaurants he's been to.
Yeah.
Because he said, this place is great for X.
Yeah.
And that was short form, but he's not got any long form. And I wish he did.
Yeah.
Because I'd be in that.
Exactly.
I'd be watching that.
Probably order what he's ordering. Yeah.
No, but not just that, but just the level of... Like, he goes, where's the best roast in London? Or where's the best, like, barbecue joint? Or whatever. And they're great short form collateral. But I'd love to see the long form.
Yeah.
I'd love to see lots of places that he's been to and why he's deducted down to this place is the one that I'd pick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really important.
Yeah, I guess, like, you mentioned, like, short form and long form, and you'd probably watch the long form, but, like, it does have to have some kind of a structure, no?
Yeah, agreed. 100% actually. It's very important. And look, we can look at examples of this. Whether it's just entertainment content, like the Mr. Beasts, the Sidemen that are obviously massive worldwide, the Logan Pauls, where, they've got a clear structure. But even... You've got to remember that we're talking about people's time and engaging with people's time. So how do we compete to ensure that we get the best out of it? So whether it's a Diary of a CEO or Joe Rogan experience versus a Sidemen Mr. Beast video, they've all got a very clear, identifiable structure and their consistency in that structure. So whether, like we've alluded to in the past, like the Peter McKinnons, etc., who they're quite niche, they're photography specialists. Obviously something close to both of us, but he had a very clear like beginning, middle and end, but a lot of it was him on his own talking to camera as if he's talking to you as an individual. And then you talk about something like a Diary of a CEO, which is always an interview, always a collaborator, and he's gained benefit from collaborators, right? When he interviewed Boris Johnson, it was not that long ago, as much as whether you like Boris Johnson or not, his viewership went through the roof because that is a ex-Prime Minister.
Yeah. When
Joe Rogan had Trump on, and actually I think Trump went in knowing that Joe Rogan gave him value, not the other way around.
Yeah.
They are like fly on the wall style, watching two people have a full-on conversation. And defining those formats is actually quite important as to how you want it to be perceived. Do you want them to be part of the conversation or to be able to watch the conversation?
Do you think one format does any better than one another?
No,
or is it
I think it really relies on what you're trying to get the audience to get out of it.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I was coaching someone about audio techniques or lighting techniques, then I'd want to engage with them directly. I'm talking to the person that's watching. But in this scenario, we're talking and they're being able to watch, right? Like they're watching the conversation unfold as we let it unfold. And they're very different, like stylistically very different. If I was explaining to you audio production, then I don't feel like the audience will get the same value out of it.
No.
And that's just through experience more than anything.
Yeah.
So little things like that. We've done a lot of documentaries for businesses in terms of showcasing their journeys, why they are who they are, what they've done to get to where they are, even going through challenges that they've faced to achieve that. And we always question whether they're talking to camera or they're talking to an interviewer. And even that little eye line difference makes a huge difference to the outcome of that content.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't think that you should do one. I think you should do all, but do them intentionally, right? There'll be moments where you do need to talk to your audience directly. If you're explaining about a new release for your fintech, like a beta drop or something like that, where you want to explain what these features are, then talk to them directly. But if you're talking about a use case or a user experience thing, then maybe it is a conversation between you and a client that someone's watching, or you and your product manager to say, why is this the way it is? And can you guide me through that journey? Because in those scenarios, they're following your lack of understanding and trying to gain information. It's proven in the Diary of a CEO, right? The amount of times that there's questions in the comments going, why didn't you ask X, Y, or Z? Yeah. But we entrust those interviewers, those podcast hosts, to take us on the journey. And probably why they are successful is because we align with the questions that they're asking. We want to know the same things. So yeah, it's just deciding a format for each video is really important. And intentionally deciding that as opposed to just going, yeah, whatever it is, it is.
Okay, so in your opinion, like, let's say, okay, I'm a startup founder and I'm starting my podcast fresh. Do you think there's like a certain format that they should start with or begin with, or is it kind of just...
If their public perception or their public presence is little to nothing, right? So they might have a LinkedIn profile, or they might have, and as a founder, because let's read what does founder truly mean, right? Like, you've come up with that idea. That idea is your baby, right? Now you might have grown this team of experts, etc., talent that has helped you develop it, but the core directive, the values that you uphold are coming from you. So I believe that actually, if it was a founders podcast about not only the startup, but them as individuals, if it's one or multiple co-founders, then it should be about them talking to the audience, because that audience could be potential talent, potential clients, potential VCs, all of which are directly affected by the founder directly. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be points where when in a startup life cycle, a founder will be there on sales calls. They'll be there in terms of first round funding. They'll be there when they're hiring first talent, right? Like when they're hiring their first, or their product managers, or their etc. They'll be there, but there'll be a point where they can't be there.
Yeah.
Right? Because the scale of the business has grown. So if they've got stuff in the format of a direct-to-camera piece, which is still unscripted, but has talking points, top level, a bit about them, a bit about why they started this startup, like, and where the idea came from, because generally they come from an honest, true place, and a bit about the values they uphold within that and what they believe in. That is evergreen content, because of course those goals might change, but your core, like who you are as a person, doesn't, right? Like what you believe in, what you want to hang your hat on, that doesn't. So I believe that piece of content should always be like very much direct to camera, but it's still a podcast.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we can say, like, we use the term podcast, but that video collateral is whether you want to call it a podcast or video content, right? Like, it's the same thing. It's just bundle it into the same hat.
Yeah.
Like, content is content. And it goes back down to the logic, which is every business can do with content. Gary Vee talks about it. He's like, if you're not doing content, what are you doing? It's free. It's free. You can post for free. Back in the day, Like that would cost hundreds of thousands of pounds to get good audience. And now it's free and you're battling the fact that it's free, right? Like there is so much out there. The attention span's the challenge. But yeah, and then that can go further, right? So if the initial is founders talking and explaining their value, their viewpoint, their reasons, their motivations, their goals, then in time that could be product teams, dev teams talking, and then it could be sales teams talking, whether with or without the founder, to take people on like the onboarding journey.
Yeah.
Imagine a sales director and a sales manager or a sales associate talking through the process of onboarding a client.
Yeah.
What it takes, what investments need to be done in terms of time, commitment, applications, and what those first few months of them onboarding looks like. That's incredibly valuable to a prospective client. They are getting first-hand ideas from the horse's mouth of what it takes. So whichever way it lands, and in time as you create more and more collateral and as you change, right? Like you start round one, but then you might, if you're going into round two and, your target VCs will change, your numbers change, your focuses change on how you want it to grow, then that's where that evergreen content lives. But then we have to generate other stuff that is more focused around that moment in time. And I guess that's just through planning. Yeah. That's our job, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what the Podcast Foundry does, is we look at it from unironically from this external lens, which gives us a kind of a cheat code into seeing what other people would think of it, right? And look, we're not VCs, we're founders of this, but we're not founders in that respect. So it'll be interesting. It's an interesting perspective to have, but it needs to be a trusted one, right?
I was going to interject to maybe talk about like experience working with.
That's you though.
Yeah.
More than me.
Because like I don't know how relevant it is because like
I don't
they've
think
done.
So.
No.
Okay.
No.
We talked these.
Yeah.
Maybe we round them up though. I think we round them up because we've actually touched on most of them.
Okay, Kev. So we've spoken about a lot in this,
as we do. As we do.
But I think if we can like round this up into 3 or 4 points, what would they be? What would be?
I think there's big mistakes that can be avoided very easily, right?
Okay.
I think the number one is like lack of consistency, or even the logic of like petering out, right? Like you start with so much drive and willingness, you come up with these ideas, 5-6 episodes that you've got, and then they get recorded, and then they kind of go, but they're great, but we just need to commit time. And obviously this is a resourcing thing. Podcasting don't have to be complicated. Like even if it is an iPhone and a couple of recorders, or even an iPhone, right, that's sitting on the desk that records that audio, we've said about how quality is important and it helps it, but it doesn't mean that it should be a barrier to entry. But yeah, this logic of petering out, and I truly believe that just comes from good planning, right? Preemptively designing what's coming when, like what episodes are about what, like how we bring that data out or that content out in a fair distribution calendar. That's probably one of the biggest learnings when you look at like the ones that are doing so well.
Because there's a lot more than just recording and just putting it out there.
Yeah. No, it's planned though.
Exactly.
Like there's content within it that not only showcases the individual, but showcases what they want to get or what the audience should be getting out of it.
Yeah.
Right? Sprinkled in there. So yeah, they're both hyper important. But yeah, as in keep it simple. Like we shouldn't create a barrier to creating collateral, right? If we can help a founder set up a good camera, webcam, a good microphone, and press one button on their computer to press record, then it becomes an easy solution. It can be programmed into their day, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, where they are just offloading. And then it's up to us as to what collateral we can take from that, right?
Yeah.
And if we've got 5 talking points within that 20-minute set, amazing. That's good content. Win-win. So yeah, as in, keep it simple is the other one. Like, when you, don't get me wrong, you know, you look at the big podcasts and they do have sets and they do have all this stuff that they fly around the world, but they're going for this aspirational production quality. But then you look at Joe Rogan, like, okay, don't get me wrong, he spent hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pounds on a studio that does it, but he can literally sit down at any given moment, press a button, or his producer can press a button, and they're started. There's no friction to us getting going. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know what else. I've talked about all of them.
Yeah, I think we talked. Yeah, those 2 points.
So,
go
on. You can close off after this as well. As in, yes, we have talked about a lot. What are your key takeaways? Obviously, what would you take out of this conversation?
That we've done a lot of talking and we should end it here.
Okay, then. Do you want to do that?
No, honestly, we've spoken about it so much. I think you've mentioned the key takeaways. I think bringing it back to those first 3 things we spoke about, which was the most important, which is concept, connection, and consistency. I think if you've got those 3, like, it's a really good recipe to get started and keep at this. The 3 C's, yeah. But no, let's end it there because I think we've spoken about a lot. And as mentioned before, like, this is a business. This is something that we do day in, day out professionally. So if there is any questions you have or anything you think that you'd like us to cover, then just get in contact, drop us a like, follow, subscribe as well.
Jeez, man.
Got to drop that in there, man. But you need a bit of a call to action, man. It helps. It helps. But no, thanks guys for watching, and yeah, we'll catch you next time.
Peace.